Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody tonight. We are doing class of 67 connects life sports, traditional adventures, or lifestyles, and which is yours. And what we want to do tonight is talk about some lifestyles. We've got several people who have made it their part of their life to do some things that maybe, I mean, we play tennis, we play golf, we play at school, we played a lot of games by the rules, but the lifestyles don't have any rules, and there's a little more risk involved. And we just wanted to sort of cover some of those things that have made people's lives a little richer from their standpoint. It may not be your standpoint, but from their standpoint, by engaging in different things. And we're going to start out with Peter Pond, who's has actually had endless powder. Um, and he's going to be talking to us on that. Then Ron's going to talk about river rafting. I'm going to say a few words on Pete Rutherford, who did some hang gliding and one of our classmates who died. And then Larry's going to talk about horseback riding up into the mountains. And we're going to finish with Burke giving some thoughts on picking up something you did in college and how does that work out? Then we'll go into breakout sessions and we can talk about some of the things that have motivated us individually and really have a little bit of fun just seeing how different people's approach towards sporting events and toward their lives in terms of what they do for exercise and what they do for really for fun and also a little bit of risk. So, Peter, why don't you start us off? And I'm not going to introduce everybody because I think you know one another. And Peter has got a great presentation and looking forward to hearing about it.
Thanks, Huff. Uh, and I call this the search for the ultimate powder. And it's gone on for now 75 years or more. Uh, I grew up, and Alan, if you could put the first slide up. Alan,
He's getting
there you go.
it.
That is, I grew up right outside of Rutland, Vermont, and very near a ski area called Pico Peak. It had a T-bar and two rope tows. I was I'm the one on the left, and I was uh, the prince of the rope tow at age 5 in at Pico Peak. And the picture here is really to show what deep powder was like in Vermont and how different it is from what we're going to see as we head into the quest for the ultimate powder experience. I was 5 then, and the skis I used had no metal edges, no plastic bottoms, bear trap bindings. And by the end of the day, riding the rope tow, my leather boots and my leather gloves were soaking wet and I was freezing. But maybe we could switch, Alan, to the next slide. Having spent my first 15 years skiing nowhere but Pico Peak, Killington, and places around Vermont, uh, I went to prep school and at Loomis in Connecticut and kind of only got to ski on weekends and holidays. So it took me a long time to really find what the West was like in skiing. This is a picture of me skiing at Aspen uh, when I had gone with Warner Fletcher and 2 other Williams guys uh, driving for spring vacation in my mother's car with all our ski equipment in the folded down back of the station wagon with a mattress thrown over that, and with Stan, our chef, who made sandwiches for us that got us through the entire trip out. We managed to get to Aspen, Colorado, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. The problem with a ski area with powder, though, is it's hard to keep it powder. It all gets broken up like the picture you're seeing here. But I continued to have this quest for better and better snow. And as such, I built a house in Alta, Utah, and had that for 30 years and improved on my powder skiing. But if you could change, Alan, again, this is more modern. This is my two sons and I. We have a private helicopter in British Columbia in the mountain range of the Gothics. And the three of us had two guides, a pilot, and what you're going to see going forward is a series of pictures of what it's like to have the ultimate powder experience. We were averaging about 40 to 50,000 vertical feet a day in a private copter. The reason we had a private copter is that the first time I went heli skiing was an experience that was excellent, but it was done in a much bigger helicopter, and you were feeling like you were at a ski area because instead of the three of us skiing with our two guides, you were seeing like 20 people skiing, and you were standing in the snow waiting for one group to go up and ski next to each other, which led to bigger slopes being required in order to accommodate everybody just going down the same slope 5 feet further to the left or right. So we ended up going, why don't you change this, Alan, again? That's my son, Nathaniel, and he's thanking the helicopter for a great day, but the helicopter is taking us into totally uncharted territory, and there are substantial risks, frankly, one of which is the helicopter itself. You never want to get around blades that are swinging both on the tail and on top of the helicopter. It can be very dangerous, and it's one of the first lessons of skiing in a helicopter. Other risks that you faced in doing this kind of skiing is avalanches, something called a tree well. You're always skiing with a locator that tells the two guides exactly where you are in case you go by a tree and you fall into the tree in what's called a tree well. That the branches of spruce trees or whatever have kept the snow from going in, and there's a pocket of empty ground underneath some of these trees, and people have been killed in the process of skiing through trees, which is part of what the danger is in skiing, like hitting trees. So there's lots of risks. There's also glaciers you're skiing on, which have lots of broken areas that you might find are extremely rough. Here's my son, Ethan, coming down to a helicopter. You can see all those mounds this is a logged out area. One of the benefits of skiing up in British Columbia in the Gothics or the Caribous or the Monashis is that there's been a lot of logging, which is a negative as far as the environment, but you have to watch out for those stumps that are leading to those pileups as you see him going down through them. So it's truly a wilderness experience. Next slide. Here's where we're starting to get into actual skiing, and this was a perfect day, and all these slides are taken of that particular day, but we're now a long way from the sticks and rocks of Pico Peak. We're a long way, frankly, from Alta, Utah. This is, to me, the most gorgeous, inspiring, and just challenging skiing I've ever done. This is a picture of me turning, but why don't we go to the next slide? This is, could somebody stop talking, please? So this is me coming down, getting to a trail and starting to go down after that. But next slide. This is one of our kids coming down. Beautiful powder. It's bottomless skiing. In other words, one of the negatives of skiing at a ski area today is it's the powder skiing. If you get 2 feet of snow, is broken up within certainly the first 2 hours, and every time you turn, if you're scraping up 2 feet of powder, you're hitting a firm surface. Skiing in deep powder is in danger of hitting something, but basically it's bottomless powder, we call it, where it's soft as silk. It really is very low pressure. Here's getting into steeper slopes. That's one of the guides on a gorgeous trail. That day was just one of the best days I've ever had skiing. I'll get into another trip later, but this, to be with your sons who were 18 and 20 at the time and be able to ski 40,000 or 45,000 vertical feet in one day is just a lifetime experience.
Who was
trust and beauty. That's my oldest son, Ethan, again, coming down that same slope the guide was in. But look at how light the powder is. I mean, it's to be cherished that we still have, in spite of global warming, this kind of a gorgeous scenery. Next. Here's another trail that same day. Again, it's you never, there's no place you can't go if you're capable of doing it. It's really quite amazing how you can sort of have a sense of liberation and freedom by skiing on something nobody else has skied. Certainly not for weeks. And there's never a ski track. The biggest risk is avalanches or tree holes. Next, here's another nice steep trail that's flawlessly perfect. And the other thing is, I think that's me going down right after the lift or the ski guide. They always have a guide in front and a guide in back, and you're always skiing, except when there's 3 of us, because we're all together, the 3 of us. But in big groups, it's always you go with a partner when you're in trees, and you watch each other, particularly avoiding the tree wells and other obstacles like stumps and things. Next, that's one of my other sons going down. Just if you're big into skiing, you know that that is just about as good as it ever gets. Next, just a beautiful picture. We happened to be with another person who was a professional photographer who took these pictures. We had an extra seat on our helicopter, and therefore he came with us and took a lot of these pictures, which is why they're so good. But those are my two sons. That's Rope Toe Pete from Pico Peak at his best. And next, two more. You get a sense of it's more exploring and just kind of creating your own path as opposed to it's a very different kind of skiing from being at a great powder ski area like Aspen or Alta. That's could be a tree well below there, but that's just a picture that shows just how gorgeous it is, you know, being out in nature. In nature, as in, I've seen a wolf walking along a ridge line. Later in the day, I've seen 10 or 12 caribou that I skied by mistake right through the middle of them. So it's just a different world. Yes, it's risky, but boy, is it worth the risk. Next. This is the three of us. Look at the dimensions of that mountain. It's just absolutely incredible to have the privilege of being able to ski that. I mean, these runs go for miles, and you just rack up turn after turn for like 5 or 7 minutes. It's just amazing. And of interest, the further north you go, the more it acts like a higher altitude. So the Gothics might be at the top of these mountains 7,500 feet. My house in Alta is 8,500 feet, and we ski up to 12,000 or 11,500. This is easier on the lungs, and you can ski longer distances for longer time, which is how you rack up a lot of mileage. Skiing in some environment like this with a private helicopter, you can do in one 6-day period, as I'll show you at the end. We did 307,000 vertical feet. Imagine the hypotenuse of that number of vertical feet in 6 days. That's me with the guy trying to get it drop into a place to ski. But you can get a sense that it's fairly steep to do that kind of skiing, and it's just an exhilarating experience that you look forward to all year. Here's the guide. This is tree skiing. Don't ask how he came down through that mess, but my son in the next slide. Oh, no, excuse me. That's another risk of avalanching, but isn't that gorgeous? You don't see that in the United States in many places. Next. Another gorgeous view. It's just a privilege to be allowed to be in that environment. And that's probably one of my kids, but that's like 40-degree angle there to get into a hopefully less steep slope to ski. But and that's my oldest son in tree skiing. You see how you come close to these traps called the holes that the trees allow to take place because they block the snow out of right around the base of the tree. Next. Then that was the end of the day, and we're waiting for the helicopter to pick us up after a run through the trees. And now I wanted to go through a week of skiing, 6 days, where we did 307,960 feet. They keep track of this exactly. They have to legally every minute that the copter's flying and exactly how much vertical you do. There were 8 of us, and each one of those, there's 99 lifts that led to 99 different trails in a 6-day period. I submit that that's, with the crowds at a place like Vail, that's almost a month of skiing.
In that period of time.
You know,
Yeah.
I can assure you, after one glass of wine at night, you're ready for bed.
Head for bed.
Anyway.
I've got lots of questions for you, Peter, and I think we'll get to some of those later on. But man, that is some trip,
Yeah.
and a number of runs. That's just an incredible amount of skiing. I don't know how your body kept up with that at the age that you were when you did it.
Well,
But are you still doing that now?
With my business, I didn't have a lot of time,
Yeah.
other than to be with my kids on Christmas and holidays and things like that. So I had to pack into like a week the ability to go each year to do something like this.
That's just awesome. That really is awesome.
Well,
and thanks for sharing that, because as I say, I think I've got some real questions to ask you about it.
Sure.
I know what it feels like to be in deep powder on your legs, and to do all of that in that short period of time is incredible.
Yeah.
It really is incredible.
Yeah.
Ron, I think you're up next, and let's just get started on something different. Peter Snow was making the rivers run.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm also into fishing, and the rivers out west are running like crazy. I was skiing or fishing in Montana last week, and the fishing was lousy. There were 6 of us fishing together, and 4 of them didn't get a fish in 4 days.
Well,
they're blown out.
That's awesome too. Ron, give us
I'm
an
all
idea
set. Am I
what
on mute or
you've
no?
done and the risk there involved in running a river.
No, you're not on mute. You're okay, Ron.
Okay, good. All right. Well, yes, thanks, Peter, for all that snow. That causes all my rivers to rise. So I appreciate it. And I started running rivers at 13, so I was 8 years behind Peter, who started skiing at 5. But that was in 1959. My last river adventure was in 2010 on the Hudson River Gorge. So I had basically about 6 decades of canoeing and rafting, scores of rivers all over the United States and really all over the world with my family and friends. I have a map that shows sort of a hand-drawn map that shows at least the rivers in the United States, continental, that I ran. I think Alan's going to get that on.
Go up the slideshow, Alan.
Let me start it again.
So that first one will just be a map of some of the rivers. But I also published a book, self-published a book, that also sort of proved that me and my family ran some rivers over 6 decades. There's the book. That's its hand drawn. That's 60 years of river running with Bowden's and family and friends. The photo on it is myself, my brother, and my father. We try to dress up to act like we're men to match the rivers. There's another photo here too. We're in the Santa Elena Canyon in Big Bend, Texas, in the Rio Grande. As I said, I began at 13, and the first river was the Current, which is a spring-fed river. That's the Big Springs. Some people claim it's the biggest spring in the world. We expanded from the Current River to all kinds of other Ozark rivers, such as the Jack's Fork, the 11th Point, the Big Sugar. And then when we wanted a little bigger water, that's a map of the Missouri rivers in the Ozark. We just went over the state line to Arkansas, and in the north of Arkansas, they had the Buffalo and the Mulberry, which were faster and trickier rivers. My father kept track of every river trip over the 6 decades. He kept a log, and who went, how many miles we went, what equipment we took. So looking back, I was able to make that book because I had 6 decades of notes. My father also introduced his boss, a rather influential United States congressman, to these rivers. And coincidentally, in the 1960s, they became the first rivers protected by the United States government. The Current and Jack's Fork became the Ozark National Scenic Waterways. Alan, if you can go to the next slide. And then the other river, the Buffalo, actually became a national river park. Those 2 rivers are still protected under those designations. The Wild and Scenic River Act was passed a couple of years later, and it protects many, many other rivers in the United States. Let's see. The big jolt to us was in 1971. If you think back, you can almost guess what it was. The movie Deliverance. Man, we headed to the southeast because these were rivers that were much faster. They had steeper gradients, and we needed to learn the skills to run these rivers, such as peel outs, eddy turns, pry strokes, and river safety, river rescue techniques. So what we did is we went to the Deliverance rivers and tied in with Nantahala Outdoor Center. That's the Nantahala that's the Nantahala Gorge. And they taught us all these different maneuvers that could get us down these steep rivers. Graduation day was actually on the Deliverance River, the Chattooga, and where we did the final last drop, Bull Sluice. Alan, show that. This is not us. This is Jimmy Carter entering Bull Sluice sometime in the mid-1970s. In the decades that followed, we wanted to run bigger water out west, and we could not do that in canoes. So what we did is we bought some rafts and we headed out west in order to learn how to raft. And we tied in with far-flung outdoor adventures on the Taos, in Taos on the Rio Grande River. And we spent a hard week learning how to do that. And on graduation day, it has me rafting through one of the tougher rapids. And you see the guides in the back. His name is Catfish. Go to the next one, Alan. His girlfriend is on the rock taking the photos, which we felt obligated to buy afterwards. And then in the last one, he just simply gives her a big hello. We're unaware what's going on. Then in the decades that followed us learning how to raft, we started competing for permits on most of the Western rivers, particularly if they offered big drops. That is fabled rapids that you want to run and put them under your belt and add a notch to your paddle. Some of these rivers you all may have run. You'll recognize them: the Middle Fork and the Main Salmon in Idaho, the Missouri breaks in Montana, the Talkeetna and Susitna in Alaska. Go to the next one, the Rogue and the Wahi in Oregon. This is a photo of me approaching Blossom Bar and the route I'm going to have to take in order to get through there. I made it. Other U.S. rivers out west, the Tuolumne and the South Fork in California. Here's a map of many of these rivers. A lot of them start in Colorado. The Green, the Yampa, the San Juan in Utah, the Arkansas, Dolores in Colorado. Here's a photo of us running the Arkansas River in the Royal Gorge. And oddly, we were just entering the shadow of the bridge 1,000 feet above us. The crazy thing is, we didn't know our picture was being taken. The next day, we're having breakfast at the Broadmoor. I see a friend from high school. We talk. He said he took the funicular down and took a picture of a raft. The river was closed to commercial, so we were the only two rafts on the river. I said, that was us. Went back to Kansas City, and he gave me the photo of us entering the shadow of the Royal Gorge Bridge. Sort of a crazy event. We also ran some rivers a little bit further east in West Virginia, the Yuccohanny, the Cheat, the Tigert, the Gauley, and the New River, all there. But the granddaddy of all, and the one you aspire to, is the Grand Canyon, the Colorado going through the Grand Canyon. And my father ran that commercially in a boat like this in 1969, which coincidentally was the centennial of John Wesley Powell's first descent of the Colorado. And there's a stamp to prove it. A stamp was issued in 1969. There's Powell. He lost an arm in the Civil War, but he's taking his old wooden boats down there. I say that's probably when river running first became a legitimate adventure sport. We also set our sights on trying to find rivers that had just, quote, been discovered. That is discovered for river rafting. This is the Biobío River, called the River of Thunder. And we got there in 1982, the year after the first descents were made. We tied in with Nantahala Outdoor Center. They did international trips. I had actually lived on the Biobío 2 years in the 1960s when I was in the Peace Corps, but I was 100 miles downriver. I had no idea that there was 100 miles of river rafting along the Andes. That now is, Chile gave its water to Spain, it seems, and the Spanish companies dammed it up. You can't run the Biobío anymore. Other foreign country rivers we ran, the Rufiji and Tanzania. The problem with that river is the crocodiles are the danger. The Carnali, here's a patch. That's the Biobío. Here's the Carnali River in Nepal I went to, again with Nantahala Outdoor Center. It's on the edge of the Andes. And then Costa Rica, the Pequari, the Reventa Zone, in Canada, Labrador. Boundary waters were fun. But the two places we went back to every single year were the Grand Tetons, where you're always welcomed, the Jackson Hole, the last of the Old West, because it had the Snake River and great rapids, particularly below Jackson Hole. There was a place with two of the big drops. The second place we always went to every year was Big Bend National Park on the Rio Grande in Texas. It has 150 miles of numerous canyons, exquisite for canoeing at least. As you go downstream, there's a map of Big Bend Park. It's always Texas on the left and Mexico on the right for all those miles. Hardly anyone in Texas you run into, and this map will sort of show you why, knows where Big Bend National Park is. Alan, do you have the map of Texas? It's right there. It's the Big Bend, but it's about as far as where you can get from the major cities of Texas. My guess is many of you have probably run some of these rivers, either yourself or commercially. I'm guessing about this time, my fellow Kansas City lawyers, Erwin Blond and Gordon G., may be wondering how I had time to practice law and do all this river running. I had the good fortune of merging into a law firm and promoting a sabbatical program. And I ended up over a 20-some-year period taking 4 sabbaticals, 3 months at a time. And I did a lot of river running during that period of time. Looking back, I was trying to think why I took a different turn. I went to the Tetons with Dave Saylor and worked on the trail crew in the summer of '66. And I sit there watching the Snake River go by, but almost every opportunity, I'd get a pack, load up my sleeping bag, my tent, food, and head up for a 22-mile overnight stay in one of the canyons. I finally figured out that it was going to be a whole hell of a lot easier to just put all that stuff in a raft and head down river without carrying it uphill. This is that summer. Barry Grabman came out to visit and came up to my work site at 10,000 feet. But that's when I decided I was going to give up hiking uphill for gliding downhill. I became, the guy who headed down a lazy river in the noonday sun. Finally, we were lucky to have never had an accident that killed or seriously injured anyone. A close call was on the Tuolumne River near Yosemite in 1983. We drove out to California with our 3 rafts, and we were stoked because we would face one of the big drops in North American rivers, Clavey Falls on the Tuolumne. Many boatmen consider the Tuolumne the most dangerous and challenging raftable river in the West because of its relentless force. It drops 54 feet per mile, which is 7 times the rate the Colorado River drops to the Grand Canyon. Clavey Falls is also dangerous because the cliff on the bottom left of it has whirlpools that tend to push you back into the hydraulics of the falls. No one ran this falls until 1970. We showed up in '83. We hired a guide to lead us through downriver. And this is our group. That's my brother Larry on the left, cousin Jim, and that's me at third. Then Blair, who you'll hear from or about in what's going to follow, is about 15 years old there. My father in the middle, our guide, a friend, Padilla, or whatever his name is, and Jim Staub, who's the father of Blair, and finally Gene Bloom. This is our crew. We're about to learn the frightening price of not taking effective use of momentum to go over a falls, because when you enter a falls, you're pushing hard forward, you clear it and not be caught in the hydraulics. Well, standing next to me as I film this, because I filmed the first 2 boats, is Jim Staub, the father of Blair. Here we go with 2 minutes of river carnage. Sound? Alan, I'm not getting any sound. But I can talk it through.
Sometimes the video doesn't transfer to the PowerPoint, Alan. You don't get sound.
What we did before practicing, we can go through it. This is right above Clavey Falls, and this shows where any raft would have to go. Once you clear the falls, you still have a mess of rocks and problems. And our guide, Judy, is going to lead the first boat, and then she'll be followed by cousin Jim in the second boat. I'm filming. I've got the third boat, and Jim Staub is the father of Blair Staub, who's on one of these boats. We ought to just let it run. That's the bad, bad, bad Clavey Falls. And that's the cliff on the bottom left. Can you just keep it, let it run? Yeah. And it doesn't get much easier as you head downriver. So if the sound were on, you'd be hearing the roaring of the water. So that yelling, hardly anyone can hear you. All right, our boat should be coming into view here. Unless Alan started it over again.
Judy to run the fall.
Ron, can you hear the video, the audio
Yeah.
through my computer?
And then the drop. There they are.
Here's your first boat. And watch, she slows down.
Try and take it right between the falls and make that bridge. She hit the falls, folks. She's caught in the hydraulic. Uh-oh. Still caught. Still trying to get shot out of it. Oh, shit, another. Oh, my God. Oh, Jimmy. Oh, no. Jean's free. The boat's in there. Blair! Where's Blair? Blair!
Well, what happened is only 2 of the 3 people in the boat surfaced, Gene and cousin Jim, and they then floated off on the top of the boat. Blair, Jim's daughter, and I'm standing next to him, is not seen at all. The danger is she's trapped underneath the boat. We sit there for 20 minutes, and finally someone comes back upstream and says that she's been swept downstream, had a gash on her forehead, but had been rescued and fine. But you never know what can happen. And that was just 2 mistakes. She should have been pushing through the rapid, and cousin Jim should have been farther back. But I still had my raft to run. And as I hiked up to do it, I talked to a New Zealand guy who was 6'2" to come and run it with me. And he did the oars and I did the bailing, and we succeeded and ran the rapid. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you do some more river running, and if so, I'll see you downriver.
Hey, Ron, I just got to say, excuse me a minute, Johnny. I've watched this video now like 25 times in the last 3 days as Ron and I have been working in this, and all I hear in my sleep at night is, "Where's Blair? Where's Blair?"
Yeah, that's scary stuff. Both
Yeah.
both of what we've just watched and listened to have a lot of risk involved, and it's really developing the expertise. I think that's really important, and also there's a great deal of luck involved too. But I think that risk is obviously what drove you, Peter, is driving you, Ron, in terms of doing these things. It was having the ability to deal with the risk, and that's pretty scary stuff. But it's also, I'm sure, a really big rush. And one of the things that we had one of our classmates who, at the age of 28, died from doing, he was a hang glider, and that was Pete Rutherford. And Pete just got into hang gliding when it was starting out, and was working with one of the people who was really trying to set up a whole situation for making rules and regulations and how to hang glide. And Pete and this fellow, the 2 of them, worked a lot at trying to develop that. Pete just really loved hang gliding. I don't know whether a lot of you or many of you knew him at school, but I just remember he always was sort of on the edge. Risk was a really important thing to him. And he was hang gliding off of a mountain in 1974 when he was 28 and doing stunts because he had gotten really good at hang gliding and had a great day of hang gliding. Was doing a stunt where you were actually on the bar with your knees and hanging down from that, and that the stunt went terrifically. But as he was getting up, he slipped a little bit. The hang glider stopped, and it just froze and went down, and Pete went down with it, and he died. There was a whole big thing at that point because somebody else had died a month and a half before on the same mountain that he was on. That, geez, how do we regulate this industry? I mean, this whole sport. It's just people are going places, and are they hang gliding also in areas where planes are? And that's a real concern. So they really, it's never been regulated other than you have to join a hang gliding club, have to take certain uh, testing and everything else like that now, which has made it a lot safer, and make sure that you're certified before you can go hang gliding. But the risk was there. Pete took it. And one of the things that I think was hard is obviously he had a great future ahead of him and lost it taking that risk. On his tombstone, it reads, "Our Icarus has flown." I think the family really felt the loss, but he had, I imagine, enjoying that risk, had a wonderful experience, and he had a wonderful experience that day before this thing happened. So in these kinds of life sports, there are risks. And as I say, watching the two of you through the two different things shows that risk. But then we get on to Larry Ricketts, who, Larry, you can talk about the risks involved in what you've done and what you learned to do uh, because of your marriage.
Well, it's up to Burke Moody and I to calm things down and provide a little humor as usual. So let me start out. I grew up in New Jersey, and as you can see, I grew up playing mostly traditional sports, and baseball was my sport from an early age. After basic training, my friend and now my friend and wife invited me with her to visit her family cabin in the Rocky Mountain region before I was going to Fort Lewis and Tacoma. So we arrived at the cabin. It was a ranch. It's a cabin on a 600-acre mountain ranch at 8,500 feet in the Rockies. And in the backdrop is the mountains and the wilderness of Mount Evans Wilderness. And this particular ranch is surrounded by approximately 800 acres of forest land and state wildlife area. And during the visit, I was informed that the family rode horseback every day. I'd never been on a horse. And we went up to, this was a barn built in 1911, I guess, barn and stables. And I got on a horse and I was scared to death. And any of you ridden a horse, you know the horse knows it right away. Tried to knock me off under tree limbs. Kept going back to the barn. And that night, my mother-in-law said, she sat me down with a stern talking. "You're supposed to be a fearless, in control athlete. Sue tells me you were a pitcher in college. Do you get tense and nervous every time you're in a tough situation? Get a grip. Take charge of the animal." By the end of the week, I could saddle and bridle my horse and was somewhat more comfortable, but I'll have to admit, I didn't think I was ever going to be a horseback rider. Well, Sue and I went back east, but we decided to move because of this beautiful ranch and came to Colorado. And I went through a training phase. And this is my mother-in-law. You getting the full screen? I'm getting some faces. Is that, you getting it? Okay. This is my mother-in-law. She was an Iowa farm girl, This is her about 8 or 9 years old. You can see she's a pretty accomplished horsewoman. This is her riding at 3 years old at the ranch with her father. She was on a horse from the time she was 3, and I put her on a horse at 99. So she rode from 3 to 99. This fellow was from Montana. He was a bronc rider, and he was my other mentor. He came down to the Evans Ranch to break horses, Clarence Whitback, and you can just see by his demeanor, he was quite a horse whisperer and really a good guy. So I got to the point with that training that I was pretty accomplished. I thought I could go up and saddle a horse. This is me on a Friday night after work running up to the ranch about an hour from Denver. And you can see I got my commercial banker's work shirt on. And I just threw on pants, jeans, my hat, and went off for a ride about an hour before dinner every day and each weekend. So you say, Ron says, well, the horse does all the work and you don't have to worry. Just got, it's not like river rafting. It's not like what Peter did in the snow. There's no danger. But I think W.C. Fields said the best phrase. What about the wonderful phrase horse sense? He said. Fields was right when he described that horse sense is the innate intellect of the horse, never to bet on humans. So the horses have panoramic vision, they have tremendous hearing and a sense of smell, and they also have great survival instincts. So they're in need to be aware of the weather and the environment and also other impediments. So this is right next to the ranch. This is outdoor lab, and you can see when you get off the trail, it isn't exactly trail riding. You have to go on elk and deer trails. And what other impediments might there be that the horse knows that you may not have known about? Elk, that's taking a picture off a horse. That's an elk herd. Moose, all of these pictures are on our property. Fox and coyote, deer, wild turkey and grouse that can come up out of the grass and scare the heck out of the horse, bear, lynx, and finally, this is a night shot of the horse's biggest fear, mountain lions. This was a fresh kill above our house, and we set up a night camera, and this was a mother and 2 cubs. I have never seen a mountain lion during the day, but I've heard them. So then I say I'm at my advanced period. It was about 300 yards. You'd go down in the morning, and I had to catch the horses, and this was banjo. I got to the point where I could take a bridle down, jump on the horse bareback, and the horses would follow it up to the barn. And I would put on 4 saddles for the other riders, including a 47-pound roping saddle that Clarence Whitback had given to me as a present that he had ridden in rodeos. And that wore you out for the day, just putting the saddle on. And then we went on overnight rides. This was a 2-day ride with a camping trip. This is the type of atmosphere you could get into on the horse up in the mountains. And then you'll find that this is me with Sue's uncle in a field. We were lost trying to find the trail of where we could get to the camping ground. So then during my advanced period, I decided that I was going to buy horses. This is the first horse I bought. This is Robin, a retired rodeo horse, or roper, as you can see. Really a gentle, well-trained horse, believe it or not. The retired rodeo horses are the best horses if you're not a complete advanced rider on trail riding. And this, during the advanced period, I trained 3 dogs to go on us on horseback rides. They'd go on 4-hour rides with it. This is a golden. This is a Labrador I had as a puppy, and you first introduce it to the horse. And then you had to be sure that you were outfully bonded with the horse, with the dog, and fully trained on the ground before you could whistle and bring them in from chasing deer and elk and some of the things you saw to get near the horse, and walking them around some of the areas they were going to approach, like the pond and water, so that they could come from the water when you're on horseback. And then the training in the next generation. I ask you not to do this. This is stupidity. This is me with my 3-month-old son in a snuggly in front of the horse. This is not very smart in retrospect. This is my daughter, 1 year old, on the second horse I bought, Cheyenne, which was a rodeo barrel racer and a cutter. And then this is what happens when you train them right. This is my son who graduated 30 years later than we did at Williams. And this is him home for the summer on Robin. And you can see that he is an accomplished horse person. He's at ease. He's right in the saddle. And I told Peter, he did river rafting as Ron did. He does heli skiing, and he's an accomplished horseback rider. So he's all three you saw today. Let me see. What's the beauty of the ranch lifestyle and horseback? It's welcoming Williams friends. There's the Perrys visiting us. There's Jeff Modisette bringing me a bottle of wine before our 50th reunion. There is our little get together before the 50th, and that's the McPhersons. The people on the left were conservation people that gave a conservation talk of saving the land out in the West. McPherson, Steve Watson, the Kyles, Turner Smith, the Myers, remember Joe Meyer, Ron Bodenson, and the Neals. And some people, when they arrive at the ranch, do nothing, and they just sit around and they just take in the atmosphere, as you can see Turner and Ron. But others that came got into the Western lifestyle. Here's Marty Samuels for the first time ever on a horse. You can see me in the background. Marty was walking down the trail with us, and he took the reins away from me, and he just got ahead of us. That's my mother-in-law. And I told Jim Lindheim, you can see in that picture, it's the only time I think I had a cowboy hat on, and I got chaps on. I don't know why. I think I was showing off to Dr. Samuels. But you can see how at ease he is in the saddle. And that's a horse by the name of Tony that was a sweet horse. And every time Marty talked to me up until his demise, Marty would say, how's Tony doing? And then there's guys that don't do anything that we put to work. And so there's Bodenson. I asked to go out and chop wood. And he didn't do a very good job because, as you can see, those logs were already cut. And he didn't split a damn one of them. So he was worthless. And then there's a guy who drops by and rubs things in. You were talking earlier about the Rockies. Alan came and I met him at Union Station. I'm not sure he came up to the ranch that time. I think it was his wife who was giving a talk to raise money. But he came in to rub in the Cubs had won the World Series, and the Rockies have yet to even come close. Then this is my conservative phase. The family said about 6 years ago I had to wear a helmet. I had never worn a helmet in my life, so I found an English riding helmet, and I thought I looked quite stylish. And then my son took this picture 3 years ago, last time I was on a horse. This is the trail I got up every morning before everybody else. I went and saddled a horse, and I rode this trail. It's about 2 miles by myself again, which is not a very smart thing to do on a horse with all those various beasts you could come across where the horse would bolt or jump or start to try to kick you off. But Will said he wanted to take this picture of me, not that I would ride into the sunset, but I would ride into one of the rainbows, that's where my ashes are going to be. If Huff and Allen and the other presidents can come up and try to find the end of the rainbow, they can put me there. Let me see. Let me get this.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
I would say that a little different. I never expected to have a Western lifestyle, but I really got into horseback riding and did it for 5 decades. I may get back on a horse this year for the first time since we have somebody who's got some very well-trained animals, but I'm a little bit reluctant because it's getting off that's the hard thing now. So Burke, you're on.
Yeah, we're kind of reaching the age too where we're finding limits to what we can do. And I think Peter, I don't know whether you're still skiing. Ron, I know you may be canoeing a little bit, but not going down the rivers. And Larry, you're not riding anymore. But Burke is still skateboarding, as far as I know.
No, I'm not actually.
I know you're not.
That,
You
that
tell a
came,
story though.
yeah, that came to an end a while ago. Um, my sister uh, gave me a skateboard for Christmas in 1964. That was our sophomore year, and I still have it. Still has four wheels. They spin, and I also have a bag of brand new Hobie wheels should I ever go back on my board. I haven't decluttered yet, as you can tell. And after the holiday break into 65, that was into our sophomore year, several of us began skating in the basement of Prospect House because it was very smooth concrete floors down there. And when the weather improved, we moved outside to the sophomore quad. We'd often have to sweep away the sand that after the snow and the ice had melted. And small groups would gather to watch us skate down the hill from up by Fairweather down to Courier. That was the line.
Right.
Over the spring break, someone from Williams ran into a couple of people from Wesleyan and Amherst and talked about organizing a Little Three skateboard meet in the spring. The competition was to be modeled on ski racing, slalom event, grand slalom event, cross country, and tricks. Somehow it got organized, and we held time trials on the sophomore quad. And the top five in each category of the Williams thing, uh, top five people in the trials made up our squad. Jimmy Allen, Andy Binder, Don Brown, Bob Conway, Tim Howlett, I think was in 64, Guy Strickland, 65, me, and someone else whose last name is Thomas, and none of us can figure out who that might have been. Um, if any of you have any idea, please let us know. Conway's mom wrangled the Hang 10 brand team jerseys. Can we hold up on the photos, Alan? Yeah. We'll do that at the photos at the end. There you go. Conway's mom wrangled the Hang 10 brand team jerseys, which were white t-shirts with a broad blue band around the chest. They didn't have purple. We made cardboard signs and taped them to the team car driver's side doors. And on May 1st, 1965, the eight of us headed down to Wesleyan for the meet. 60 years ago this month is when that was. The Wesleyan Argus, their school paper, reported a crowd of over 500 people. The event was covered by the New York Times, Life magazine, the AP, NBC News, among others. And Williams bested Wesleyan 79-73. Amherst came in a distant third with 21. I won the hot dog award, skate meister, if you will, with the most individual points. It was a ton of fun. I had an E-flats concert at a prep school immediately after the meet. And I'm pretty sure Andy Binder drove me down to the concert. We're not sure about that. We were a little late getting there, and the E-flats were already on stage. So I skated down the center aisle of the auditorium, jumped up on the stage, and we slid right into our first song. I was in my jeans and t-shirt at the time. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from CBS while I was in the chemistry lab, inviting me to appear on I've Got a Secret on May 17th, 1965. And that appearance was really the pinnacle of my skateboarding career. I don't think we skated much at Williams after that. I only skated once in a while on deserted suburban roadways in the evenings in the years that followed. One 4th of July in the early 70s, I think it was, I was visiting my family in Pennsylvania, and my nephew asked about skateboarding and would I show him how to do it. So I dug out my board, rolled it back and forth, bent the trucks left and right. Everything seemed to work. I took it for a gentle spin down the driveway, then back up the hill a little further. Got up a bit of speed, easy turns, left, right, going great until a wheel caught a piece of gravel and the board stopped cold. I did not. I slid several yards on my belly and the palms of my hands. And that was the last time I was on my board, which sits in a corner of my home office with 4 brand new wheels. That was my career. It was literally about a month, I would say, in at Williams in spring of '65. Can we go to the slides? I just show you a couple of pictures here that may be of interest, Alan. This is me coming down the way with that's Prospect in the back. Todd Ackerley, Rick's brother, older brother, sent this to me. He said he was amazed at how small the board is, which is true. And you can see there's small little black dots. Those were our gates. We used stones before we used beer cans. Next. And this is the campus map. The trail we used ran from up at between Fairweather and East College, diagonally down to Courier Hall. That was the run that we used most. Right. Next. This is Bob Conway heading down that trail to towards Courier, and I'm pretty sure that the person in the doorway down there is John Gladney. Next. And this is Bob from the other direction, Fairweather on the left and the Art Museum on the right with some people watching, and he's coming down through stone slalom gates as well. Andy pointed out to me that Bob and I had different techniques. Bob rode on his board with his feet perpendicular to the board, or 45 degrees, much like a surfer would ride. And I rode mine with my left foot parallel to the length of the board and my right foot tucked in behind it. I have no idea what that meant, and I wasn't conscious of it at all. Next. Yeah, this is a pyramid that we tried. Bob Conway on the left, I'm on the right on our boards, and Guy Strickland, who was standing on our thighs as we came down the path. And I think that's just about at the end of the trick. We never did that in competition. This is an official team portrait, back row, left to right. It's not a very good picture, but it's there. Conway, Binder. I don't know who the guy is in the middle. Maybe somebody else does. Don Brown and me. And then left to right on the bottom is another person I don't remember, Jim Allen and Guy Strickland. This is just in preparation to go to Wesleyan. It's Conway in the dark glasses. Andy bent down, probably painting a sign. Jimmy Allen looking over things, and a small skateboard over on the left. Next. This is team car number 2. Andy Binder in the far background in the blue jacket. For some reason, they put masking tape on the front headlight. I guess racing. And this is a team photo that I think was taken for the Williams record because it's quite a good photograph. It's Andy, Conway, me. I don't know who that person is. And the next is Jimmy Allen, and then Guy Strickland, and then Don Brown, and the guy at the very end, I don't know. So if anybody has any idea, let us know. And this was the front page of the Wesleyan Argus reporting on the meet. 500 astounded as purple cows upset cards in the first Little 3 skateboard competition. So that was a great headline. And yeah, so we can go ahead. And this was Don Brown's report. on the little three title that appeared in the record, which has a lot of good data and information of it. And then the final thing is the last picture, Alan. This is me telling Steve Allen what my secret was on I've Got a Secret. That's in the background, and that's the secret. So we didn't do skateboarding for me anyhow was in a very small space, basically in the sophomore quad, not on the big powder mountains or any of that stuff. But it was really fun, and the camaraderie among the people that did skateboard competition was remarkable. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Thank you, Bert. That was great. Thank you all in terms of doing
Can I
this.
just make a Can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
I swam just the first actually year and a half at Williams, and I wasn't a great swimmer. But I didn't start skiing until my last year at Williams, and then at the age of 43, I learned to surf. So I consider the skateboarding experience was actually formative in my later life. I surfed until I was 70. I'm still skiing, and and but that was a great time. But Bob Conway, he came and he talked about surfing, and I never expected to end up in California. And so here, all these years later, I was the one who ended up surfing, and and he's out in Northern California, and he has not surfing anymore. So that's
Well, that's what we've got a couple of the skateboarders here, but I think one of the things we wanted to do tonight was to sort of give an idea, and we were going to break out into breakout groups, but I think from a timing standpoint, we just put it down to questions. But just to give an idea, I know all of us have different stories. Some of us have really just stuck to um, sports that are not as risky. I know I personally I went to Outward Bound when I was 40 and did a lot of winter skiing and winters camping with my kids, and my kids ended up being really guides and for winter activities over a period of time. And I know all of us have different experiences like that. And I'm sorry that we can't share them all, but I really appreciate the fact that everybody is there to think about some of those things. And I don't know how many are still doing some of those sports that they have been doing for a lifetime. But I think we're getting to the point where some of those we have to hang up and get to others that may be a little less risky. But I hope it's open to questions, and anybody who wants to speak, just if you do
before you
yeah.
get to questions, let me say Gordy and McPherson are still playing basketball.
Yeah.
A lot of people are playing golf. Joe Rosenthal I think, is still scuba and snorkeling and fishing. Dave Reichert, I think, gave up rock climbing, or maybe he didn't. So we have some unusual talent in the group.
I'm still skiing. And I think but I think it's great that we've all had lots of different experiences. As I say, I open it up to question. Anybody, it's great if you could just put your hand up. Don.
I just have to tell you that Burke was the real stud. He was the guy that was flashy and doing really well. It was great to have him on TV. He was the right representative. The rest of us were just trying to pick up girls. My parents wondered when they saw me riding on a trash can on a skateboard in Life magazine, what are we paying this tuition for?
Jim, I don't know whether you have any comments. Jim Allen, still on. You were a part of that team too.
Jim, you're on mute.
You're muted, Jimmy.
Still muted.
There you go.
I can remember going on a ski trip with Peter Pond to someplace in New York, and we were all in his tiny little mini car with four helmets in the back window, and he learned how to hit the emergency brake, and the car would spin around backwards going up on Main Street there, and we thought that was a hoot. Still heli skiing, Peter?
What's that?
Are you still heli skiing?
My last time was just a day heli skiing in Snowbird, Utah. And that was probably my 75th birthday present from my two boys. But it was more than I could really handle, frankly.
Yeah.
Now I still ski. We spent 3 weeks at Jackson Hole, but it's blues and seldom blacks anymore.
Right.
Burke, I loved your story and the pictures that went along. I see Bob Conway a lot. I can't wait to give him a hard time about what you said about him.
No, it was great. It was a really fun
I
flight.
remember.
Has he seen
you.
those pictures? Have you talked to him at all?
Yes, he has.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's seen most of them. Yeah, he and I talk with some frequency.
Oh, good.
So,
I remember going out at Fairweather, and watching you guys
Yeah, me too.
do that.
Yeah, me too.
But all I could think of is baseball season's coming, and I don't want to break my leg, so I never did it.
I tried it once and decided, nah, I don't do that.
Me too.
Ted McPherson has his hand up.
Peter, I'd be very curious what need being so adventuresome in yourself was met by going on that journey after growing up skiing, but being so aggressive.
Well, it's kind of like you only live once. And if you're in a quest to find the best of the best in business or in anything else, you keep looking for what you view as perfection. And when you find it, it's a lifetime experience, particularly when I could do these things with my boys, which to my shame, one of them went to Middlebury, incidentally.
Thank you, Peter.
You know, another reason is you end up places no one else can see because you're in the middle of a canyon or you're on top of a mountain, and the only way to do it is in a boat or a ski. So you're places that no one sees, but the sport you took up allows you to see very isolated, unusual places.
I don't know this story well, but another one of our classmates took a trip down that very same river, and Gardy Gillespie and one of the members of that group, not a Williams guy, I don't think, drowned.
Which river?
You know that.
Do you remember?
Well, I think it was the Colorado. Maybe I don't know.
Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it was Grand Canyon, I think, Rick.
Yeah, Grand Canyon.
Were there not a bunch of Williams guys that went up to the upper Hudson each spring and went down the whitewater in canoes without any knowledge of what we were doing in freezing water?
Wow.
Did any of you do that? I remember a couple trips up there.
Gorge. I wouldn't want to do it in a canoe, man.
A couple canoes got filled with water, and then they hit a rock and they'd bend around it like tissue paper.
Yeah. That's what happens. The canoe fills with water, hits the rock, and then it wraps, and the water pressure is unbelievable. And if you're trapped behind it with a foot or leg, you can't get out. It's just impossible.
Well, I'll mention something much less exciting. Harry Tether, Jeff Bowen, and who's now his wife Hillary, and I took a canoe just down the river outside of Williamstown, and there's a tree across it, and we got sideways, and the current flipped the canoe under, and we managed to get the canoe out, but we were freezing. This was in late March, maybe, or early April. So we stripped down to our underwear and we had to paddle the whole rest of the way. And we would go by this man with his two kids fishing, and there's a girl in a bra and underpants, and four of us, and different kind of excitement, but good memory.
Would that have been the Green River, I guess, that went through Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the Hoosick River.
Yeah.
Hoosick, yeah.
Housatonic.
And then Joel.
Ken, you've got your hand up.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a friend of mine and his wife who drowned on the Snake River. They were on a raft operated by the resort, so they had a guide and all the rest of it, and it hit a rock and flipped, or at least it flipped them out, and they got caught in a underwater tree, and the water pressure was just so great that they couldn't extract themselves, and they both drowned. I had a question for Peter on that powder. How deep are we talking here on the powder? And if you fall, do you just sort of disappear from sight?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it can take your breath away if you fall, particularly if you fall forward and land on your chest and you're under the snow. And it's one of the reasons you have a guide in the back and you're wearing a location device where he can see you. He also requires everybody to wear a whistle so you can keep whistling, and they sort of know where the bulk of the people are. If there's, with the three of us, we were obviously always trying to keep each other in sight, but it's hard. The hard part is to put your skis back on if you fall, because it's sort of bottomless and you're standing up to your hips in snow. So it's a tough thing. You make lots of effort to avoid having to put your skis
on. Joel Rosenthal.
It seems to me there are two threads here. One is that the activity, or most of these, river rafting, powder skiing, and remote areas, is something that takes you to a different place that you wouldn't be in otherwise. And the other half of it, it seems to me, is sort of the principle of the thing. I'm going to get from here to there, in the canoe, the raft, or on my skis. And I've found some of the same thing in what I've done the last 20 years, using the pretense of bird watching to travel to exotic tropical places and to photograph the birds as best I can. I'm somewhat inept, but it's the principle of the thing. There's a particular bird. You want to get that photograph, and you may be with other people, you may not. But in my recent experience, I was in the Darien Gap in Panama, and I've seen some tropical jungles. This was extraordinary. It's a primary forest. And it was like the Avenue of the Giants in California. These are the biggest trees I've ever seen in the tropics, and they're hundreds of years old. And it is remote, not trackless, but wilderness. And what got me there was this bird, that bird, the other bird. Ultimately, I saw a lot of great birds, took some great pictures. I've been editing them for a week, but it's the transformative effect of it. And I can imagine the same thing. You're skiing in that tranquility, or you're getting a rush down a rapids. At the same time is the principle of you've set a goal and you're going to achieve it. And that probably everybody in this group is some sort of overachiever, or was trained at least to excel or succeed. And it seems to me that a lot of that is the same. A lot of what I've heard is along a similar line.
Great comments, Joel.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to pop in here, either ask a question or tell about a story of something that they've done?
Oh, by the way, I'm just throwing in as far as skateboards go. Tony Kronman, who you may remember was in our class at least freshman year, was unhappy with his grades, B pluses and stuff like that, left for a year, and then came back and got nothing less than A plus on every course I think he took, and went on to be dean at the Harvard Law School or Yale Law School for many years. He brought a skateboard. He was from California, and he brought one freshman year, as I recall. And the place where people skateboarded was in front of Morgan Hall. And if you went down that little hill on the corner at Spring Street was the drugstore. And I remember somebody going through the doors into the drugstore at some point. And that's the only place I ever saw anybody skateboard. I never got over to the sophomore quad to see the champions, as it were.
Anybody else want to comment? You're certainly welcome to stay on for a little bit if you'd like and continue to talk. But thanks guys for the presentations. Those were really, Peter, thank you, and Larry and Ron and Burke. Really just great thoughts.
Oh, John, I have one last question.
Yeah, sure.
For Ricketts, the horseman here, since I got put on a horse for the first time in 45 years 2 weeks ago, and twice, and one was the ride from hell, up and down and in the mud, and the horse stumbling. It was incredible, and the horse was much better than I was. What do you do with your testicles on a horse? I've never been able to figure that out.
You remove them. You remove them before you get on a horse.
Yeah, that's important. That's important.
I didn't tell you once I was galloping with my son in a meadow, and the horse shied, and I went off the saddle and caught my foot in the stirrup.
Oh man!
And to this day, I can still see those hooves coming at my face with me trying to get my foot out of the stirrup. So that's when my testicles got real small.
Oh man!
Well, good to see you all.
Well,
thanks for these stories.
Very enjoyable.
Thank you guys for
Thanks, guys.
presentation,
Okay.
and we'll
Good to see everyone.
we'll
See
keep
you
you
all-
posted.
see you all
Yeah, we'll
down
keep you posted on things that for the future. I think what we're doing is we're getting closer to really 2 years away from our reunion, and we've been talking about trying to see about some get-togethers in preparation for it. But we're also going to continue this series. Right now, we don't have one set for next month, but we are working on putting together a whole crew for additional times. And I think one of the things that really we have felt about this whole series is just we're able to stay connected. And I know what I've found is when I'm going someplace, I'll be looking one of you guys up. Because we've had a little bit more of a connection with each other. And I think that's really what we've been trying to do. And it's really, it's been a wonderful thing as far as I think a lot of us are concerned that, hey, we're staying connected. We may not be able to do some of those sports that we've been doing, but there are other ones that I know many of us are continuing to do. But I think the connectedness has really been a wonderful piece. And I, for one, am really grateful for this posse. So let's keep going, everybody, and looking forward to keeping up with you.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone.
All right.
Thanks.
Night, guys.